Lord, during walking meditation, I didn't feel the pressure when stepping. Instead, I heard the footsteps. Is this because I stepped too hard? Second question. All conditioned things are anicca. All Dhamma are anatta. Please give example of Dhammas which are not sankhara. Thank you.
First question, it sounds like you're floating. If there's no pressure, you must be floating. The reason we feel some pressure, some sensation is that the body weighs something, but you weigh a lot or a little, there's weight pushing down on the ground. And especially here, we're barefoot, so you should feel something. Although it is possible the nerves in the feet, as we get older, become less and less sensitive. So possibly some people hardly feel anything. But you can also focus on the movement, lifting. If there's an intention, lift. You actually bring up that foot, get to know that movement and the bringing up of the foot and then the pressing down. I've always used the actual pressure and touch between foot and ground as my object, but as I said, you can use the lifting if you want, or you could recite Buddho or another word if you want. There's actually a number of things you can do. The idea is to have an object that you keep returning to develop strong mindfulness. So you could, in theory, recite anything, any words that are wholesome, in Pali, English, your own language, Chinese, whatever language you prefer. You could, if you do a lot of breath meditation, you could even follow the feeling of in and out breath as you walk. But I would recommend not doing that until you've done a lot of mindfulness and breathing, because you'll probably find it too difficult. And of course you can also contemplate, practice vipassana when you walk, observing changing sensations up and down the body, sights, sounds, thoughts arising, feelings arising in your mind. And there's plenty that you can contemplate while you're walking as well. So when I say put your attention on the pressure of the feet touching the ground, that's giving you an example. But it's not, you don't strictly have to adhere to that. There could be some other object that you can use. So you maybe experiment a bit with your experience, your body. And the second question, Sabbe Sankhara Anicca. All conditions are impermanent. That means physical and mental things, which covers most things in the world. But Sabbe Dhamma Anatta. All Dhammas, as in all phenomena, you could say, are not self. So why is there a distinction? Sabbe Sankhara Anicca. Sabbe Dhamma Anatta. Well, all sankhara are also anatta, but not all dhammas are anicca. Why? Well, because nibbana, we would say, although the Buddha didn't really describe it as permanent, but in the way he taught, he implied it. It's not impermanent, it's not an impermanent conditioned state of mind. Nibbana is the unborn, the uncreated, the undying. It's freedom from suffering, it's liberation from the mental defilements. It's the highest happiness, the highest peace. But it's not self. Anything that's a sankhara means it's a conditioned thing. So this whole body-mind complex is a conditioned thing. You can take a part of this body and mind, the five khandhas, and say it's a sankhara. So a thought is a sankhara. It arises, passes away due to causes and conditions. You I look at you, many of you here today I don't really know, but a few of you are familiar to me, I've met you before. So every person I see, I might think, I don't really know you, so I don't know much about you, or I know you, maybe I know someone's name, a little bit about you. So maybe that means different thoughts are coming up in my mind depending on who I look at. That's an example of sankharas arising due to different causes. But Nibbana doesn't have any of this arising and ceasing anymore. Nibbana, the mind is so well trained and the insight is so clear, it's gone beyond that. The arahant is no longer subject to the conditioning process. So there aren't any more moods of liking and disliking, wanting, not wanting. So there's no more clinging, so there's no more becoming, there's no more birth. So when arahant dies, they don't come back to anywhere. When an ordinary person dies, they come back. Because of the sankharas that are still affecting them and coming up in their mind, they're still making karma, good karma, bad karma, they still have clinging and attachment. So when we die, depending on the kind of karma we made, the level of our mind, the kind of becoming we've created through our life, rebirth will take place. Maybe if you're lucky, heavenly rebirth. Unusual when you need to be immediately reborn as a human, having died from being a human, but it's possible. But more likely it is maybe heavenly rebirth and then human rebirth. Or, fortunately, a lot of people, and the majority, according to the Buddha, the majority of people in the world die, they're not born in a better place, they're born in a worse place. Ghost realm, animal realm, hell realm. The lower realms are full of beings. They later come back as a human. All of this is due to sankhara and karma that we made and keep making through our life. But the arahant has contemplated this, developed the path, factors, sila, samadhi, panya, strong mindfulness, insight, and contemplated and seen clearly that all of this, physical and mental phenomena, are not self and not to be clung to as self. So the mind is liberated from that delusion. They no longer cling to the idea of self, and they manage to eradicate all the craving, desiring, wanting, and attachment. So there's no fuel left to be reborn. Once you reach Nibbana, no more karma is made, even though the arahants still might be alive in the world. They don't make any more karma. They may do many good things, but it's not karma, it's just doing good things out of wisdom and compassion. When they die, there's no more fuel to be reborn, so that's it. So sabbe dhamma anatta. All dhammas are not self, including Nibbana. But Nibbana is not anicca. So like Nibbana arises and then disappears. It arises and it doesn't disappear, that's it. So you might call it a permanent, long-lasting happiness.
Next question. Hello, Ajahn. I would like to ask, is there a method to heal relationship between my two people? Both of them are not particularly close to each other and avoid each other's company for unknown reasons, though they are siblings. How do I help to make them able to share and communicate with each other better? Thank you.
Well, I assume you have a kind wish. You want people who you feel are apart, estranged, to be friendly, back together again. But maybe the first thing to consider is that really your role? Is that your job? And is it possible? Because some people are maybe better off not together. They argue all the time, be apart. Why put them together just to argue? There's a few, I'm just suggesting there may be a few different aspects to this. maybe we have the ideal, we want family and friends and work colleagues to be all friendly and cooperative, and work together and talk nicely together, all good. Of course, that's an ideal, but reality is humans don't always get on that well together. So you have to consider what degree of hostility or differences there are there between people. Is it worth trying to get them back together, or maybe best to leave them alone? If they're happy in their separate worlds, fine. You can't always make people come back together. But if there is a chance, well, it has to come from a basis of kindness, passion, wisdom. But with wisdom, you also get equanimity, so you also have to accept maybe it's more than you can achieve. Partly depends on you and them, that your relationship with these two people. If they don't see you as any kind of advisor or guide in their life, as anyone who is sort of someone they'll listen to, then maybe it's just too difficult. But at the very least, what you can do is when you meditate with the thought, may all beings be well, and you can go through all beings, especially the ones you know. Visualize them, say their name, think of them, and as your metta is coming up, well, you may think of these two individuals, wish them well, may they be free from enmity and hostility and calamity. And you make that wish in your mind and direct it to each of those individuals. And then maybe you step back and wait and see. Maybe something will improve, maybe not. Partly will depend on the power of your metta. If you think about it, if you're hoping to get two people back together again, as I said, it's a nice thought, but maybe you're just trying to play God. Get these two people to love each other again. It could be more than you can do. It might be harder than you can achieve. But maybe, I don't know all the details here, so maybe there's possibility. So if you think it's possible, give it a go. You can certainly meditate on it. You can also show by example. We show by example through our own behavior. So we know two people who are separated. We can be friendly to each of them. And we only talk good things about each of them. And at least we do our part in this whole story. Be kind to each person and encouraging them to be friendly, kind, forgiving in their behavior. How successful it would be depends on the karma. Some karma is so strong you can't do much. Other karma can be changed and improved, and the relationship can be mended. It has to come from goodwill, metta, karuna, compassion.
Venerable Paul, by anicca we are getting old and our mindfulness in daily activities decline. How can we fight it? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
How can we what?
Fight it.
Fight it. Well, first thing, maybe broaden your perspective. Physically, we age, we weaken, the body gets weaker. But if you've been practicing mindfulness, wisdom, cultivating the path, all aspects of the Buddhist path through your life, Dhamma, Sila, mindfulness, wisdom, Bhavana, even though the body may be aging and getting weaker and sicker, mentally it doesn't have to weaken. Your mindfulness isn't bound to get weak as you get older. That's perception I've thought about it. Oh, it must get weak when you get old. But it doesn't have to. It can get stronger. If you're wise and if you train your mind to see the impermanence of the body and the dukkha of the body and let go of your attachment, even though the body is weak, you can make the mind very strong. And I know some people, number one, Ajahn Kalyano, whose body in his last 10 years of his life was extremely weak. His memory went because he had a stroke. His muscle use was degenerating rapidly. He had lots of pain, lots of bronchitis and lung problems, diabetes, all kinds of organ problems, inflamed urinary tracts and bladder. You name it, he was getting it in the last 10 years of his life. So physically he was very weak, couldn't really do anything for himself. In the end he couldn't even swallow. When I used to help him, we used to massage his mouth to get him to swallow. And in the end that got too hard, so we had to give the food through a tube because he couldn't swallow. But his mind always seemed much stronger than mine. His mindfulness seemed perfect. His wisdom seemed perfect. And compared to mine, I was a young man, I was always thinking, he's so mindful, so tough, so strong, so his mind is so bright, mine is the opposite. And I was the strong, physically strong one. So that's a good example of someone who's getting older and weaker physically, but mentally he's just as strong or even stronger than ever. And many teachers I know are the same. Their level of mindfulness and wisdom matures with age. So as the body is fading, their mind actually gets brighter, they become sharper, smarter, more good qualities. Of course it's not in every case, but it can happen. And with lay people as well. I often quote a friend of my mother's who used to do meditation with my mother. Once my mother got into Buddhism, she met one or two of her friends and realized they also meditated. So they would meditate together, they go to Lumpur monastery and meditate sometimes. Then this good friend of hers got cancer and became bedridden and to be in hospital. So the group of ladies who would go with my mother to meditate started to visit her friend who was now ill in hospital, dying of cancer, diagnosed with terminal cancer. And they were going to visit this lady to give her support as she was dying. So my mother and her friends were the healthier ones, stronger ones. They were old, but they still had mobility and still had their faculties. They were visiting this friend in hospital who was the weak, dying one. But the one who was weak and dying because she had nothing else to do in hospital and because she realized the death was coming soon, meditated every day. And she's very determined. And she'd sit on her bed and she'd get quite concentrated and her mindfulness was improving, even though her body was getting weaker. And my mum and the friends would go and sit around her and talk to her and then tell her all their problems, talk about all the troubles they were having. And she'd sit on the bed listening because she's got no troubles to tell them. They know what her problem is. She's dying. And she's not going out meeting anyone. She's just sitting there in hospital, so she didn't have a lot to say. So she'd sit there and listen to them mindfully, compassionately, and not say much at all. And then at the end, everyone would be saying, we're so happy we came to visit you today. And they'd all thank her because they realized them going to visit their friend, they were the ones gaining from the experience because she was the mindful one, compassionately listening to them. And then they were going home feeling good about what they've done. Sometimes life is like that. The one who's weakest actually is internally is strongest. Not always, but it can be like that. So your level of mindfulness may degenerate. Of course, we have illnesses associated with memory loss, brain damage, brain degeneration, strokes, dementia, senility, Alzheimer's, all these things, of course. And there are big challenges, and there's not much you can do. If those sort of illnesses come along, maybe there's not a lot you can do other than endure them for the last part of your life. But generally speaking, if you don't have one of those serious illnesses, it's not guaranteed that your mindfulness will just get worse as you get older. Things get worse, your body gets worse, your mobility gets worse, of course. But your mind can still be in a very good state, and you can be very wise, because you've lived a whole life, maybe 60, 70, 80 years in the world. You've learned many lessons that someone of 10, 20, 30 years old hasn't learned. And they're physically fit and running around, making all kinds of mistakes and all kinds of bad karma, because they don't realize yet what is good and bad karma. They haven't learned all the right lessons yet. Whereas this older person may have, they may be much wiser, more compassionate. They've learned to let go of many things. So sort of development in the Dhamma is it's not a certain thing. Sometimes someone can be very ill but very wise and very peaceful. Sometimes someone very strong can be very unwise and unmindful as well. So it's not a guaranteed thing.
Dear Long Paul, thank you very much for your teaching. My question is, during meditation, and one or two times when I was at home, I felt there was tightness in my head, then very tense over the neck and shoulder. I tried to ask myself to relax. After some time, only the weird sensation went off. What should I do if this feeling comes back? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
See a doctor. I'm not a doctor, so the physical side of our health, obviously you've got to see healthcare professionals, people with skill and knowledge in that area. But if it's fairly minor, perhaps it's more just of a mental experience, just a mental kind of block, tightness. Well, my recommendation would always be maybe start off with going to the breath. In any kind of, even a physical episode, having a health episode, you're not sure what to do, well, of course, seek help from somebody, but while you're waiting, or before you can do anything, just go to the breath. Go with your breathing. Start to try and be mindful of the breath going in and out. Maybe take a few deep breaths, relax, sit down and do whatever you need to do, and go to the breath to help steady the mind. That brings up some mindfulness. Mindfulness is the support for wisdom, understanding. Your intelligence can make a decision that, something's going wrong. You can assess yourself. If you're really ill, really something's going wrong, maybe you decide to call for help, get a phone, call for help or something. You assess what's going on before you do anything next by going to the breath first. Calm yourself. It helps to relax the body, so physically it has a good effect. Mentally it relaxes the mind, the fear, the panic, the worry. Gives you the patience, because if you've done, especially if you've done meditation like we've been doing today, say one day you do have some kind of stress, painful situation, unpleasant feelings, you do what you do in your meditation today. You go to the breath, establish mindfulness, remind yourself to be patient, observe what's going on. And some things do just pass away very quickly. Especially when you become mindful, you realize it's just a feeling and it dissolves and disappears sometimes. Other times, it may be prolonged, serious, so then you may need to go and get help. But you establish mindfulness by going to the breathing first, and then you can decide what you need to do next, or if you need to do anything or don't need to do anything. If you don't use the breath, well, you could recite Buddha Bhagavad, as I mentioned earlier. You think of the Buddha, hold on to the Buddha. Sometimes people misunderstand this term, letting go. They say, oh, with Buddhists, you just got to let go. So that is kind of true, but in order to let go, first of all, sometimes you need to hold on. But you need to learn to hold on to the right things and let go of the wrong things. So in this situation, you might hold on to the breath, or you hold on to the idea of Buddha. You say the Buddha's word, or you chant Itipiso, Bhagava, or you think about a picture of the Buddha, something that holds your attention. So letting go isn't simply not caring and not doing anything. Sometimes it still means you're holding on to something, but something skillful that helps you to let go of everything that is not skillful, like the worries and the fears. So I think in many situations, that's what my sort of first recommendation would be. Go with the breathing or a meditation object. Use that to calm yourself and see what's happening. Often things just come and go. You have feelings of tension in the body, pains, aches, pains. I've found over the years many physical conditions. If you practice mindfulness and breathing, they often just disappear. It's just a suggestion.
Dear Long Hong, during my daily morning meditation practice, can I start with spreading metta mentally, followed by scanning of the parts of the body before I do anapanasati, Sadhu Long Hong?
Of course. It's the nice thing when you practice on your own, you've got the choice. You're in control. You're the boss. So you have to observe yourself what works for you. Maybe on your past experience, you've started your meditation with metta before and it did seem to work, calm you down, so you can do it again. But some people prefer to chant, some people prefer to contemplate the 32 parts of the body or the 4 elements. Some people like to start with the breath and later they go to metta. So there's room for flexibility here. You can experiment, see what works for you, your character. But I do generally recommend to at least find some time to practice metta, and particularly in the morning, because you're starting your day. You're up before you go to work, or go out, or meet people, meet the world. Set your mind on metta for at least 5 minutes or longer if you can. If you can practice anapanasati as well, of course, good. But metta, I say, is a very, very good way to begin your meditation in your day. What did the Buddha do? He would spread metta at dawn out to the world and survey the world, they say. Metta tends to do that. You're sending your energy, your mind of goodwill in all directions when you're practicing it properly. It's like in all directions, whoever, wherever, going out there, may all beings be well, free from suffering, small creatures, humans, big things, small things, anybody, anywhere. It's just this general goodwill with well-wishing in all directions. And people doubt this, I've got no metta, my mindfulness is no good, what's the point? No. I would say that just put aside the doubts and just do it anyway. And you're establishing the mind in right thought, Samma Sankappa, the thought of non-ill will. The metta means non-ill will. Non-violence, non-hatred, compassion. And it's a good way to begin the day. And you're also spreading metta to yourself. Remember, you're one person with all these beings you're spreading metta to. You benefit. And what happens is you may later on in the day encounter all kinds of difficulties and troubles, and you may forget your metta. That happens because we're not perfectly mindful. But if you've already had metta in the morning for a while, you've been consciously developing metta, and then in the afternoon you get annoyed someone who's driving badly, or someone who called you names or didn't help you, and you get annoyed or angry with someone, it doesn't take much to get back to the thought of metta, to let go of that, because you've already developed it earlier in the day. But if you aren't regularly developing metta, it may not be familiar to you. It's like someone like me says, oh, practice metta, you're angry with that guy, just forgive them, have a bit of metta. But your mind goes, what? Not used to it, you just don't know because you're not familiar with it. And I meet people like this all the time, especially in the West, where they're not Buddhists, they don't meditate, they don't hear much Buddhist teaching, and you say, oh, practice metta, forgive your enemies, let go of this anger you've been accumulating. And they kind of look at you with this blank look. Metta? What is metta? Goodwill for myself. You can do that? Yes, you can do that. Some people, they're not familiar with this idea of being kind to yourself, being kind to others. It's just alien because they spend a lifetime of struggling and, education, work, family. It's all a struggle and problems and difficulties. Metta is the last thing they ever think of. So when you bring it up at first, it's almost like a surprise. Oh, there's this thing called metta. It's like, yeah, there is. Is it good? Yeah, it's really good. It's something that is some new secret. It's not a secret, it's just common humanity, it's just people forget. Metta gets covered over with ill will and complications. So, as an antidote to that, bring it up, before you're angry, start practicing metta regularly. And metta is part of samadhi. We all want samadhi, we're all on meditation retreat, we all want samadhi, we all want insight into the noble truths to free our mind from suffering. That's the traditional Buddhist teaching, Buddhist path. Metta and samadhi are almost the same thing. The object of samadhi may be different, but if you develop one pointedness of mind on an object of samadhi, your mind is in a wholesome state. There's no ill will. Metta is like water. Kind of cools you down, lubricates the dry spot. So, practice metta regularly, whether you do it at the beginning of your meditation, the middle, the end, the morning, the evening, you choose. But I would encourage regular practice.
Good afternoon, Lord Hong. Can Lord Hong kindly explain consciousness in the context of the 5 aggregates, please? Sorry.
What we call the vijnana khandha in the 5 aggregates. So, this is how the Buddha described a human being. Rupa khandha, physical body, made up of 4 elements. And then the 4 Dhamma khandhas. Vedana, this ability to feel, sense, pleasure, pain, and in neutral feeling, neither pleasure nor pain. But this very moment, if you have some painful feeling, probably in your legs a bit, and you also feel some pleasure, feeling happy to be here, enjoying it. Maybe also you feel some neutral feeling in your body, maybe in the part of your body feel very neutral, neither pleasant or unpleasant. And feeling is in the mind or the body. You might say 6 kinds of feeling, although they're reduced down to just the 3 different tones of feeling: pleasant, unpleasant, either pleasant or unpleasant. And then sanya is perception, memory, and how we remember things. It doesn't mean to say it's accurate, but we tend to remember things with our biases. So we remember things that we like in a certain way, things we don't like. And this is like a label we put onto our experience. So one person's memory and perception is going to be different from others. And one person can be seen as a friend or an enemy or as a stranger in the middle, for example. Then sankhara, as we've been talking about earlier, this is the karma formations of the mind. We think and we make karma, intentional action through our sankhara kanda. And then we have the vijnana kanda, consciousness. This is the mind arising with eyes, seeing, ears, hearing, nose, smelling, tongue, tasting, skin, touching, and then the mind itself is the sixth sense, and you can have a thought, an idea, come up into the mind. All of these consciousness arise and cease moment after moment. So this is a tricky one, because like now maybe you're looking at me, or you're also hearing. So what consciousness is arising? Is it the seeing or is it the hearing? Seems simultaneous, doesn't it? It's a package. Actually, it's moment by moment, it's just so fast, arising and ceasing, you can't really distinguish. So that's the problem with consciousness. It's constantly arising and ceasing at every moment. And it has things accompanying it. So as consciousness arises, like seeing, you also get feeling and perception arising together with the consciousness. So it's like a package coming up, and me seeing, it's not going to be the same as you seeing, even though we might be looking at the same thing, hearing the same sound. What consciousness is bringing up will also be interpreted by feeling and perception, and maybe do different things to our mind, even though we're hearing or seeing the same thing. But consciousness is arising and ceasing all day long. And the more we're stimulated, different things going on, the more kind of effort and energy it requires to pay attention. So we get tired with more sense contact. So the Buddha said, if you look at it very carefully, with mindfulness, you observe sense contact and consciousness arising, it's not actually that pleasant. It's more of a burden. Because you're constantly seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching, thinking, all day long. It's tiring. What did the Buddha compare it to? Did he compare it to a cow with the skin off? Just the pain of the exposed underside of the skin. Is it really sense contact is like that? The only thing that would really show you how heavy and tiresome all this sense contact is by developing one-pointedness on an object, like samadhi. And you develop, say, for example, anandasa, to the point where your mind merges with the breath, becomes one-pointed. Then all this sense contact, sense consciousness arising and ceasing all day long, can be seen as impermanent, suffering, not self, not that desirable, because you're now experiencing something separate from it. And your mind becomes peaceful inside through samadhi, developing samadhi. It's no longer dependent on seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling. You're getting a nice rest from that. So we call samadhi, it's like a holiday for the mind. rest for the mind. Peaceful. You let go of your body temporarily, you let go of the sights, the sound, taste, no touch. Your mind is just absorbed on one thing, so suddenly it's brightened up, and a lot of energy is freed up. There's all this seeing, looking, tasting, hearing. It may seem enjoyable, but that's a delusion, and it takes our attention out all the time. We get very tired. So by the end of the day, we're tired. Because we've seen so many things, heard so many things, thought so many things. We can't cope with it. It's quite tiring for us. What is the most tiring thing? Probably is going into central Penang shopping. You go shopping to the shopping mall, it's everything you like. You look at it, see it, think about it, taste it, smell it. For a little while it's exciting, but after a while it's like, ugh. You come home, you're heavy, you're tired, because of all this sense stimulation, you get sense overload. I'm just joking, but it's like that, isn't it? Our senses are actually heavy. They tire us out, they wear us out through all this consciousness arising and passing away, overstimulation. We often consider it happiness to have a lot of sense stimulation. Oh, it's so exciting, so beautiful. But actually after a while it tires us out. Whereas samadhi doesn't really tire you out. It's just bringing your mind to one point in this. And it's content without all these sense objects. So free, it's a sense of freedom. And that gives you a good perspective on the limitations of the senses, sense consciousness, as in the khandhas. So the Buddha called the khandhas a burden. Heavy. Who is the one who carries this burden? We do. We're carrying this body around, carrying our senses around, our thoughts, our feelings, our memories. And it weighs us down. That's why we feel suffering so much of the time. Sometimes we don't notice the suffering when we blot it out. We find distraction all the time. So as soon as you're feeling a bit worn out, tired, you do something that makes you feel happy. So you listen to some music, eat some nice food, talk to somebody, sleep. You do the things that you like to do to get away from suffering, and you get a rest through distraction. And then you come back, you've got a bit more energy again, so you're out for a bit more sense contact, sense desire, seeing, hearing again, until the end of the day. And the next day it's like, oh, I've got to listen to my music, I've got to watch my soap opera, I've got to eat my nice food. That's life, isn't it? We're constantly running away from this feeling of suffering by going to things we like for a bit of pleasure. But how long does the pleasure last? Not that long, and then you're back again. Oh. The way of the Dhamma is going to give you much longer lasting happiness, and it's more satisfying, or it's proper, you might say proper or true happiness, because it's not dependent on all these objects which tire you out. So consciousness in the khandhas, it's like all the other khandhas, it has its limits, and it's a basis for clinging. The sense of self clings to it. As long as we cling, we suffer. If we have enough mindfulness and insight to see it's not self, not to be clung to, we don't suffer. So the khandhas themselves are only suffering when you cling to them. If the mind has developed enough insight, clarity, samadhi as well, not to cling, then we'll be free, we'll be happy. That's the arahant. So the arahant still has sense consciousness. They see, they hear, they taste things, but they don't suffer with any of them.
According to the Sankarani Sutta, the Buddha proclaimed that Sankarani, an alcoholic, has gone to the heavenly realm on passing away. How is it possible when Sankarani has broken the fifth precept? Explain what does the sutta means.
Well, as you know, Sabbe Sankara Anicca, so his state of drunkenness is also impermanent. He obviously sobered up very quickly. which is possible. I mean, I have seen people drunk and then sober up quite quickly. It's amazing what the imminent pressure of being arrested or being threatened by a charging animal or something wakes people up out of their intoxication. Maybe the power of the Dhamma can do that too. You know, when somebody's really crazy, intoxicated with alcohol, or just mentally in a very extreme state, they meet the Buddha or an Arahant and they can come out of that state. The Bharami, the goodness of that being, wakes them up, sobers them up out of that state. Really, we're all a little bit drunk, aren't we? We're intoxicated with the world, not as drunk as drinking alcohol, but we're intoxicated with our thoughts, our moods. We get excited, we get annoyed, we get happy, we get depressed. We're always changing our minds up. And we're intoxicated with the world on that level. Not as much as alcohol, that kind of is more extreme, but it's similar in a way. So, I wasn't there in the time of the Buddha. I can't speak for this person, I can't say exactly what went on, but I can see it's possible because the mind it can change. It can go downhill and become much more unwholesome, confused, full of suffering, but it can also go up and abandon the craving and attachment that causes suffering, even the desire for alcohol, even the confusion of getting drunk. You sober up and you can drop it just like that. If you really have the Bharami, you can do that. I know monks who have become monks because they have become alcoholics as lay people. And they're so fed up with themselves and ashamed of themselves and have so much self-aversion. That's it, I quit the Malay life, I'm going to become a monk. And they become some of the best teachers to other people who are addicted to alcohol. Teach them to give up because they've done it themselves, they know what it's all about. So certainly many people in this world have become addicted to drink, drugs and other things, gambling, whatever, and abandoned that. So if you can see that people who have previously broken precepts have changed, well, it could be possible they could change, whether it's just on the level of seed or maybe they develop samadhi, and attain enlightenment very quickly. It's possible. Somebody may have made lots of good karma up to a point, but they're not yet enlightened, they're not yet a noble one. And they just falter. They have a weakness, so maybe they have a weakness for alcohol or something else. So for a while they falter on their path, but all this good karma is still there under the surface. It's just in the current present moment they're a bit of a drunk or whatever, but then something snaps them out of it. They meet a teacher who shows them where they're wrong, a Buddha, an Arahant, or some good teacher shows them where they're going wrong. And they snap out of it very quickly, and then all this good karma is there ready to give its fruit, and they just meditate a little bit, quickly they get resolved, get enlightened. It's possible. Every single person who's become enlightened in this world started off with mental defilements. They broke precepts. There's no one who has never broken precepts in the history of their life. Everyone will have broken something sometime. So there's always, because of that, there's always this chance to make amends. You can learn from your mistakes. Some of your best learning lessons in life are from breaking the precepts, aren't they? Alcohol is a good example. If you've got really drunk and done something really stupid, you don't forget that. That's my experience from before I was a monk. And then you think, wow, that was a stupid thing to do. I never want to do that again. And for me, it's like, yeah, that's it, finish. Don't have anything to do with alcohol. Some lessons you learn, and you still have to learn the lessons, or you make a mistake, but that's it, you finish. Same with many things, killing animals. Many people, they kill animals to a point they just say, I can't do this anymore, and they just quit. I often quote, there's a taxi driver I knew in Bangkok whose job used to be slaughtering cows every day that was his career. Killing cows over and over again. Until he did it to the point where he said, I just can't do this anymore. I feel so sorry for these cows. I can't remember, I think he was shooting them in the head with some gun, slaughter them so they could, make them into meat for people. He did it for years and years, and then he reached the point, he said, I can't do that anymore. I don't want to hurt another animal in my life. He'd had enough. That's like wisdom and compassion arising. So he quit. He drove a taxi, but he also joined a charity where they rescue cows from slaughterhouses and put them into a farm and keep them alive. And he did that as a kind of way of making amends for all the cows he killed. So you often meet people in the world who completely change from being drunk, being sober, maybe helping other people to get out of their addiction. Criminals who've gone straight, gamblers who quit. All these people in the world, there are many examples, if you look for them, of people who have changed from previously breaking precepts to not breaking precepts. And when you see that in the wider community, you realize, well, it's possible somebody could be a drunk, but because they've got all this good karma sort of waiting there, they've practiced before, they have become a drunk, but now they suddenly hear the Dhamma, realize their mistake, they quit, and they're just ready to become enlightened. I can believe that possible.
Respected Long Paul, though I don't expect any result during my meditation practice, somehow my concentration on mindfulness is good. Sometimes I'm not so ideal. May I know what could be the causes which affect my meditation consistency? May I know is or are there ways that can help in the improvement of focusing on mindfulness in meditation?
The simple answer is just do it. Just keep doing it. Whether you're peaceful, do it. Whether you're not peaceful, still do it. Whether you want to meditate, do it. Whether you don't want to meditate, still do it. You have to get into the practice of doing the practice. Sounds a bit kind of silly, but we stop and start. This is the why people don't get results and don't progress. They stop, then they do a bit more, then they stop. One step forward, two steps back. People, they're a bit inconsistent in many areas of their practice. In the precept, in their meditation, in their dharma. People have periods when they burst, and they have a burst of energy, they do lots of meditation retreats, and offer the dharma, or listen to the talks, and then they kind of lose their inspiration, and disappear. I live in a monastery, so there's people who come for a year or two and are really keen, and then they disappear for a year or two. Like, oh, what happened to them? And then they come back again, or maybe not, and maybe not. Human beings are like this. Our minds are very up and down, all over the place. That's the whole point. An ordinary person is not yet established on the path. A noble one is. The noble one doesn't slip back. So we're aiming to practice like we're nobles. Practice precept regularly, develop this meditation regularly, and be willing to put up with those moments when confused or caught up in strong emotions, the mind is not peaceful. Just take that part as part of your learning process and have to be patient with it, learn from it, put up with it. Don't give in. Don't give in to when your moods sort of say, or your practice, or when you have distraction, or sometimes precepts and meditation are also closely linked, so you can often trace back if you're not very enthusiastic in your meditation, your mind is not very peaceful, it's very scattered. Often there are things going on in your life that are causing that. If you're having a problem with someone who you get angry with, or competing with, or have some issue with, and so you keep thinking of them, so you can't settle down in your meditation. Or there's something you really want, but you haven't got it yet. You keep thinking of this thing you want, rather than letting go and settling into meditation. So there'll be certain things going on in your life which may reflect in your meditation, and you meditate and make it very hard to sit still. When you're very full of lust, or very full of anger, or very worried, you can't sit still, can you? You see people when they're full of worry, they pace up and down. They can't sit still and meditate, it's too much. Or when someone's really angry, they can't sit still. They sort of try and meditate for like a minute. No, stop. Over the years, I've seen many meditators, and sometimes you can see the mood gets the better of them. And it may be related to something in their life, some issue, some problem, something. So we also need to reflect. There may be something you need to adjust in your thinking, or in your lifestyle, your relations with other people. There'll be things you might need to adjust and look at and reflect on, because everything comes back to your mind. And if your mind is not happy, not peaceful, there'll be reasons for that. You may have to look into that. That will help you to develop your meditation further.
Last question. What is the aim of maintaining our mindfulness until our last breath? What is the aim of maintaining our mindfulness until our last breath?
The aim of maintaining mindfulness to the last breath is to maintain mindfulness to the last breath. That's the whole point. I guess the alternative is you're not quite at your last breath and you say, I give up. I mean, if you're one of those ones who've been doing this breath meditation today, and it's not quite reached the time, the end of the session, and you've got 5 minutes to go, and you're like, I give up. Well, be careful, because 5 minutes before you die, you'll be going, I give up. We're training for that moment when we die. Really, every time you're meditating, you're training your mind for the last moment of your life. It's a very special kind of training. You want to die peacefully, or give yourself the best chance to die peacefully. So that's why death and the breath, and meditation are so closely linked. Really, life is just one breath in, one breath out. That's what tells you you're alive, it's the breathing. And that's what gives you your next moment of life. You breathe in, you breathe out. It's as simple as that. As soon as breath is impossible for whatever reason, you're risking death. If you fall into water, you have to find a way to breathe, otherwise you drown. If you're in pollution or something, it's hard to breathe. You feel very uncomfortable. So the breath and life are right together, and you breathe until you can't breathe and you die. Of course, many people die in their sleep or unconscious, so you just can't control that, you don't know. But you're practicing so that while you are conscious, you can be mindful. To use the breath and be mindful of your breath, because it will be the last thing you have. And it will bring you mindfulness if you train, you practice with it. Now, when you're healthy, do it so that when you are at the end of your life, whenever that is, you can turn to the breath as a friend. It'll help you to calm down. And I've been with people and seen people and heard of people who have done this right to the moment they die, and it calms them down and it makes them feel at ease and accepting of their last moments. They're not all over the place, they're not panicking. They stay with the breath, and often the breath at the end is not very, you don't breathe in and out very easily. Your breath becomes very disjointed. Sometimes you've got phlegm and saliva, and it sounds horrible sometimes, but you can still watch it. I know that because I'm always getting colds and I'm often watching my breath when I've got a nose full of mucus. You can still watch your breath even if your breathing system is not working very well. But it's a way to keep your mind wholesome to the end. That's what you want. You don't want to be caught up with regrets and anger and fear and worry and anxiety and all the things that we face. From this moment till that moment, you're learning to let go of all this, and you can use the breath to do this. There are many other reflections you can use as well. I'm not saying it's the only way, but it's synonymous with being mindful, keeping your mind in a wholesome state till the end. Because when we say the end, what we really mean is the end of this body, the working body. It dies, but it's not the end of everything, because mind goes on to next life. And you want your next life to be, you want to be reborn in a wholesome state. You want your mind to be in a good state as you go into the next life. Be in a good state, you have to keep it there with the mindfulness and the wholesome Dhammas. As I said, you can't follow the breath when you think of the Buddha. Or another one is to remember your good deeds, the Dhamma you've offered, the good things you've done in your life. Something that is wholesome will keep your mind in a good state as you die, as your mind separates from body, seeks its next birth. Sometimes for people who've made a lot of merit, it's just automatic. Like monks I know describe as they're dying, the mind gathers together in samadhi, just like when they're sitting samadhi. Goes to the peace, brightness, and they go. Some lay people I know, they're dying, they have visions of some of the good things they've done in their life. It brings great joy at that moment, and then they pass away. Some people see what they call an nimitta of where they're going, the destination. Heavenly mansion, temples, Buddhas. So all of that is a result of the practice.